right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. My name is Dre Devots, a systems engineer here at Verify, and I will be your host for today's workshop. Today, we're joined by Victor Verba, another SE over here, and he's going to walk us through Verify version 13.0 GA. Hey, Victor, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Dre. Doing well. Happy to have 13 out. Excited. Good
Yes,
stuff.
sir. Yes, sir. I'm excited. I think everyone else is as well. All right. We're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. Then Victor's going to show us that new 13 version. We're going to pause for Q&A, get some of your questions answered. During the demo, if you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Q&A panel in the bottom right corner of the screen. After Q&A, we're going to reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. Verify is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR, UCCX, and Cube call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, remote phone control, change management, and Dow plan management. But today we're going to be focusing on Verify 13. If you have any other questions on any other features, please feel free to chat them over to me, and we'll take those offline and get those answered for you promptly. One more thing before we get things kicked off, for those looking for a more hands-off Verify experience, we do offer a managed consulting service. This service provides a dedicated Verify SE to do all the heavy lifting, giving you and your users a complete hands-off experience. Think of us as an extension of your organization. It provides upgrades, one-on-one training, report and dashboard building, or anything you need. Your dedicated Verify systems engineer has you covered. The only thing you have to do is reach out to us. If you want any additional information on our ECS service, feel free to reach out to your account manager, and we'd be happy to see if ECS is right for you. With that said, I'm going to kick it over to Victor, and he's going to take us into the wild and show us that version 13 and all the fun stuff coming.
Excellent. Thank you, Dre. And hello, everybody, guys. Thank you guys for joining us. We are excited to have 13 out the door. Special shout out all of our customers and friends out there that took part in our EFT program. Your information, your feedback was invaluable for us to be able to get this out the door. We really appreciate everybody helping us out, going through those test processes, and just kind of working with us to make sure that we're putting out the best product for you guys. So to go ahead and get started, just what we're looking at here is a quick overview of some of the features that are available in Verify 13.0. We're going to touch slightly on each one of these topics today. We're not going to go into too much detail on configuration. We've done a lot of webinars. We'll continue to do webinars on how to set up some of these features. But if you wanted some additional information on how to configure some of these options, please take a look at our webinars channel on verify.com, and we definitely have some detailed information on how to set up each one of these features. And as always, keep an eye out for our additional workshops as we dig more into these and revisit some of these configurations. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look over at Verify. So some of the first things we're going to go ahead and take a look at here are going to be let me go ahead and adjust my screens here, are the dashboards. So let's go ahead and get started in our dashboards. One of the things that we're super excited about, we have had a lot of people ask for, is any of our customers using our contact center analytics. Building dashboards, building reports, and things like that. We did go ahead and add the ability to add audible alerts into our dashboards. This is a great way to be able to draw attention to problematic or warn before something becomes problematic. So if you're currently running any of our CSQ dashboards, you have the ability to go ahead and add thresholds to those. Thresholds could be applied on a per CSQ basis. Like in this particular case, I'm monitoring just one CSQ, and I have some audible warnings set up, or it could be for all CSQs, and you could set audible alerts more globally. I have a series of 5 or 10 queues, and if we ever drop and there's no agents logged in, hey, I want to trigger an alert that says, hey, we've got nobody logged into these queues. So you can set that up on a global perspective. Very easy to go ahead and configure these guys. If you guys have threshold alerts set up already, you're going to notice like this guy, it's just a matter of toggling something on, picking your audio, setting your volume, and setting your repeat intervals and how often it's going to repeat. So it's very easy to go ahead and set those up if you guys are already using thresholds. But a great way to be able to go ahead and do that is to be able to, once you have your thresholds configured, really just toggle those guys on. Just to give you a little example, we'll see if you guys can hear this. Basically just a warning that, if any of my queues should have 0 logged in agents, I'm going to go ahead and get that warning. I could decide how often I want that warning to repeat, whether I just want it to repeat a couple of times, or in this case where, no agents are logged on, maybe during business hours, I want this to continue to repeat because that's a serious problem. Right? So that's kind of number 1 on our list, is the ability to add those audio thresholds or audio alerts into the Verify UCCX dashboards. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and take a look at here is our Cube event reporting. Cube event reporting is both for dashboards as well as it is for call analytics and Cube analytics. So anybody running our Cube reporting, this is a great thing for you to be able to have, and it's going to allow you to get even more granular than you can now with your searching. So just to give you a quick example, I've got 2 widgets here that are built the same. They're searching the same information. What I'm looking at here is basically any call that has an internal error message. An internal error message is a code that's going to be present from your cube of a call drop or a call failure. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm just isolating those particular events. Now you'll notice one over here, if you had prior to version 13, we always reported Cube events in sequences. In other words, the entire sequence of events. In other words, this is a sequence of events. Here's a call coming into the Cube. Here's a call going back out of the Cube. And when we were grouping or summarizing or even showing detail, we always took into account the entire sequence of events. So you'll notice, again, both of these widgets right here are looking at the same search criteria, but you'll notice the counts are a little bit different. This one here is looking at the entire sequence of events. So that means that when I'm looking at the IP address, I'm looking at the IP address of both the originating event and the terminating event. But there's definitely going to be times where you want to just isolate the event that has the particular error message, and that's where sequence versus event-based reporting comes in. So very easily with this widget right here, looking at sequences, you can see I have 10 calls to this particular IP address. In this particular dashboard, again, same search set, but what I'm doing is I've changed over from sequence reporting to event-based reporting. What that's going to do is it's going to take out all of the events that did not have my error message. In other words, if we were looking at the detail like we are in this one, this event has my error message and here's my IP address. I only want to see this IP address that has the error message. I don't need to report this one. The error didn't occur there. So by switching over to event-based reporting, what I can do is isolate just this event and show just the IP address that had that particular error message. So a great way to be able to use that is whether you're looking at error codes or whether you're looking at things like peer IDs and peer ID usage. Especially when you're looking at usage, you want to be able to just isolate the usage at that particular peer ID. So switching to a event-based reporting is going to isolate just the one peer ID based on my search criteria. Right? Looking at this from a detail perspective, here again, what I'm looking at in this particular one, and let's take a look, I'm looking at internal error messages also. So if I do a search here, you can see I'm just looking at all errors within my Cisco Cube. But I am doing sequence-based reporting. So if I go up to my configurations, you can see I'm doing sequence-based reporting. Now, in detail, a lot of times you want to see the entire sequence, maybe how the call came in, how the call went out, things like that. But there's also going to be times where, hey, I really just need to see this particular event, be it an answer event, an originate event, or in this case, just the event that actually had the error code. So what I can do is simply change over to event-based reporting, and you're going to see, instead of seeing the entire sequence of events, now I'm just going to see just the one event that actually had my error code. It's going to allow me to very quickly isolate where my error codes are happening, be it IP, specific peer addresses, or even specific call types, being the inbound or outbound event, or in this case, both. So that's new to version 13, and a great way to be able to, again, help refine even more that cube data that you're seeing. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and pop into, and I do apologize if I'm going fast, make sure you ask if you have any questions that are specific, please ask them in the QA panel. More than happy to take those and address those at the end, but I just got a lot to be able to cover here. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about, if you are running our Cube application and our Cube Analytics, the next thing you're going to want is our Cube CDR monitoring. So if you're familiar with our CUCM monitoring, we have the ability to alert you if you get no calls. In other words, maybe Cisco's down, or for whatever reason it stopped sending calls. You now have that same flexibility with Cube reporting as well. So this is new to version 13. If you are running Cube, this is something you're going to want to enable. All you need to do is pop over to your gear over on the right-hand corner and just go to your Cube. If you edit your Cube cluster, you're going to notice that there's a new option down in the bottom. I'm going to go to my CDR processing section. And what I'm going to do is just edit my Cube under CDR processing, scroll down to the bottom, and you now have the ability to monitor the Cube event. Now, this is important for any Cube event. We have noticed issues in the past where the iOS devices do not reconnect and start pushing data via the FTP program. It's not common, but it has happened. So this is a great way to get ahead of that if something like that should happen. What you're going to do is you're going to set up your minimum volume. You're going to set up the days that you want to monitor. You know, if you're not busy on Sunday or Saturday, you may want to exclude a couple of the weekend days. And then you're going to set up the time that you're starting to monitor that event. So, you know, if I expect calls between 6 a.m. here to go, you know, for about 12 hours, I'm going to go ahead and set this guy up to monitor 10 calls an hour at least. And if it doesn't have 10 calls an hour, it's going to go ahead and send me an email. This is a great way to let you know that, one, if there's a problem with your Cube, perhaps you're failed over to a secondary Cube or an HA Cube or something like that, your primary is going to stop sending data because it's no longer it's no longer getting data. So it's a great alert for that, but it's also a great way to be able to, again, get ahead if for some reason that iOS device loses connectivity or stops sending data over the Verify system. This is going to let you know before it becomes a larger problem. The next thing I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit about while we're in the our system configurations here is our database archiving. This is a huge feature for us and a huge feature for a lot of our customers. This is going to give our customers that have extended thresholds or compliance needs that they need to meet the ability to archive databases that are not commonly used or archive data that just isn't queried as much. So prior to version 13, all of our data for a cluster would go into a single database. Now, if you were storing 3 months worth of data or storing 10 years worth of data, that data accumulates, and it makes for a very large database. So how that affects your day-to-day customers, most of our end users are querying, you know, the current month, maybe the previous 2 months or something like that, but they're usually querying anywhere between 30 and 90 days worth of data. Now, if I have 10 years worth of data in that database, in order for me to pull out that 90 days worth of data, I had to go through all that 10 years to figure out what is my 90 days worth of data. So the system was able to handle that, but to make that more efficient and help improve that end user experience, we came up with database archiving. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you the ability to create smaller databases. So what do I mean by that? So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to automatically create small databases and keep a primary database. So you'll notice my configuration right here. I have a primary database. What this is this is my data that my customers or my end users or my managers are querying with regularity. Maybe 30 days worth of data, 60 days worth of data, 90 days worth of data. This is what your dashboards and your regular reports are using. By using a primary database, we're going to keep this guy small. I'm keeping this guy down to 1 month and 2 days worth of data because on average, that's the way my end users are using my system. They're querying kind of relatively current information. So that means instead of querying 10 years worth of data, I'm just querying 32 days or so worth of data. So all of my reports and my common reports and my dashboards are querying much smaller subsets. But that doesn't mean that I can't get to my older data. So what we're going to do is we're going to automatically create databases, in my case, on a 3-month basis. And what that's going to do is it's going to keep a database with 3 months. So if I need to go back to February of 2022 to be able to run a report, or January or February and March, rather than looking at this big database with 10 years worth of data, I'm just going to go back and say, let's go back to 2021 and look at January and February. I'm going to go to this database with only 3 months worth of data. It's going to make for a much more efficient query because it's not looking at all of that data. Now, the nice thing about that is all seamless to your end users. Those databases get archived and created automatically by Verify. And this is a perfect example of an archiving situation where we came into a system. I have a database here that was originally built, and this database has got several years worth of data in it already. But then what we did is we turned on database archiving, and we can see that we archived our first database. So I have my older data, 2018 through 2022. That was what I had prior to version 13. And then when I loaded up 13, I turned on database archiving, and I said, well, let's go ahead and start creating those smaller databases. Here's my primary database. This is what my end users are querying. You can see I've only got about a month's worth of data in here. Here is my previous archive, where I go April to 22 to June 30. Again, I've only got 3 months worth of data in here. And again, this is my active archive. So even if I have to go back to, say, July 4th, Verify is going to automatically know to go to this database to pull that data. If I need to span all of September and all through July, Verify is automatically going to know it's going to go to just these two databases, and it doesn't need to query these databases to pull that information. So the nice thing about that is it's really going to dramatically improve that end user experience when you have larger databases or you just have a large amount of call volume. You can set these archives up to go every 1 month, and that's going to make for a much smaller query and much smaller data set return because, again, I don't have to query all that data when I'm really just looking at this week's data. So great option to go ahead and have. If you guys have any questions or are interested or trying to find out more if database archiving is right for you guys, feel free to reach out to your account manager. Feel free to reach out to some of our engineers here. We're more than happy to work with you and talk a little bit more about that process. With database archiving, the next piece that we also have is the ability to manually archive databases. So with database archiving, we kind of automatically do that for you. We keep those databases small based on your schedules. But not everybody is interested in database archiving or has the need for it. Sometimes they just have a large database. They've been running for a very long time, and they want to keep that data, but they don't necessarily need it archived regularly. So with that, you also have the ability to do what we call multi-database support. And that's the ability to go ahead and just create a brand new, fresh database that's going to start from scratch. So if I created a new database right now, new data is going to start syncing into that data. But then what I can do is I can take an older database and just associate it to my cluster, giving me seamless reporting into that older data. Simply by clicking Associate Database and selecting my database server, I can attach a different database right into my environment, and that's going to give me seamless reportability. So now I'm looking at this really older Houston database right here. So what I can do now is then query seamlessly that Houston database to be able to pull back analytics on that. So a great way to be able to, again, manually do some archiving, help your end user experience, and then also keep those databases. So you'll notice when I attach that database, it's online. It's available for reporting. If I wanted to go ahead and run a report for my cluster here, and if I had data in that Houston database, I could just run a report. There's nothing I have to change to be able to get that data. However, I don't have to keep that data on this database server. The nice thing about multi-database support and database archiving is I could archive these databases off onto different servers in different locations. So I could have, let's say, our Linux OVA running MySQL. I could have my primary database on there, which is maybe only storing a month or so's worth of data. Meanwhile, I can archive all my long-term storage off into a data center somewhere where it basically, for the most part, just sits until it's needed. So the great thing about that from efficiency perspective as well as a database management perspective, it gives you a lot of flexibility to allow your DBAs to be able to manage that archive storage, but also keep your day-to-day storage just maybe local on your local server or on different servers somewhere else. So there's a lot of flexibility with both multi-database support and database archiving to determine where you want to go ahead and keep those databases, but also how large you want those databases to become. All right. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and take a look at is going to be some more system configuration type options. So let's go ahead and pop over to our application. So in Verify 13.0, we added the ability to use distinguished names for LDAP privileges. So how does this help? So a lot of our customers use just kind of standard non-privileged end users when they're doing Active Directory authentication. Things like SAM account name. That's not considered a privileged field in Active Directory. So we never needed a login to speak to your Active Directory. I've worked with a lot of customers and they're like, well, you need a login to get to Active Directory. That's not always true. It just depends on the field that we're using to authenticate to your Active Directory. So things like something like SAM account name, that's not a privileged Active Directory field. I don't need to physically log into your Active Directory to be able to pull or query information that is SAM account name and then go back to verify and make sure it's a valid user. However, we have a lot of customers that use what are called privileged fields in Active Directory, things like user principal name, or things like mail, like email addresses for logins. Those are privileged fields in Active Directory. And prior to 13, we didn't support the privileged fields. But you'll notice in our new Active Directory configurations now, we now have the ability to go ahead and add distinguished name users and distinguished name passwords. This is going to allow Verify the ability to go ahead and log into your Active Directory and query those privileged names, giving you some more options for your automatic or your authentication to verify by using, like I said, an email address or user principal name or any number of privileged or non-privileged fields. This is not a requirement. If you're continuing to use SAM account name, nothing is going to change in your system. We're basically just giving you some additional options to go ahead and use more privileged fields within Active Directory to be able to authenticate against Verify. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and pop over to is I'm going to take a look at some of our application settings. So we added a few different options within our application settings, again, built around system performance. One of the things that we did is we added some report queuing into Verify. So what does that mean? So that means that if I have 100 reports all running at midnight, they're not all going to kick off at midnight. Because in all honesty, you don't want 100 reports running at midnight, but we have a lot of customers that have a lot of different hands in the Verify system, and that's totally okay. We recognize that, which is one of the reasons that we came up with this option here. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow reports to queue. So let's say I have, 100 reports running for various departments set to kick off at midnight. They're all running, maybe they're the previous day, maybe it's the previous month or the previous week or something like that. So if they're all set to kick off at midnight, if we all tried to run them right now, well, that's going to use up a lot of resources on both your database server. We've had DBAs complain that like, hey, we see, system usage spikes at certain times, but it's also going to use a lot of resource on your Verify server. So rather than allowing all those to kick off at once, we're going to give you the ability to kind of throttle those. So if I'm taking a look at my application settings right here, you're going to see right under the call analytics and reporting section, max concurrent calls reports. This is going to default to 3. We found 3 is a pretty resource effective way to be able to manage how many reports are kicking off at the same time. And again, also keep in mind, this is scheduled reports. So as you're running your ad hoc reports, as you're doing your searches and things like that, this is not going to affect that. This is strictly going to be looking at your scheduled reports that are running in the background. What's going to happen? At midnight, it's going to run the first report, second report, third report, and then it's going to wait. That fourth report is not going to run until the first, second, or third completes, and then it's going to kick off the next one and the next one and the next one. Now, this is a configurable value here, and we made it that way because different systems have different system resources. We did cap this at 10 because we found that that's pretty efficient number to be able to run reports at. And again, a little bit of this comes down to your system resources. You don't want to pop 10 in here automatically and hope that it works great because your system resources may not be able to handle 10 reports, or your DBA may yell at you if you're trying to run 10 reports at the same time. So we do come out of the box at 3, and through our beta processes, we found that nobody had any issues with the 3 reports. So what's going to happen is those reports will continue to queue. It'll run till it completes all those reports. Again, keeping your current schedule of previous day, previous week, previous month, and things like that. But if you feel you need to make some adjustments, that's easy enough. Just pop over to the gear on the top right-hand corner over here, and then just pop right over to your application settings. Under CDR Analytics and Reporting, you'll see Max Concurrent Calls. So the next one I'm going to go ahead and talk about is going to be Report Alerts on Failures. What we found is that, look, from time to time it happens, reports may not run. That may be due to the size of the report. We've had customers, try to push reports that just are too large for the thresholds on their SMTP servers. Most of the time we see those about 10 megabytes, but if you're pushing a large detail report or a large PDF, sometimes they're too large and the report will fail. Verify generates the report, but it's not able to email through the email server. So what we've done is we've given you the ability to go ahead and toggle on email report errors. So I definitely, again, if you have version 13, download this guy, and this is going to give you the ability to go ahead and get an email if a report fails. This is a great way, again, to just get ahead of a problem if you have a lot of end users running different reports and things like that. If something should fail, maybe it's a configuration in the report. Maybe they were running a report for somebody that's no longer with the company, or something weird happened with the report. This is a great way to be able to just go ahead and get a little alert that report didn't go out. If it's something that you can easily address because of SMTP or size or anything like that, you'll get some information in the actual email error. Or again, you can always reach out to our support center. We'd be more than happy to take a look and see maybe why a report didn't go out. All right. Next thing I'm going to go ahead and look at is our maximum number of widgets on a dashboard. When we talk about efficiency, it is definitely important to understand that if I've got 50 widgets running on a dashboard, that's going to affect the 50 other people that are logging into the Verify system and running their own dashboards. So we did go ahead and put a threshold on the maximum number of widgets. Now you'll see I have mine down to 3. Don't worry, out of the box, yours is not down to 3. The default will be 15 widgets on a dashboard. And what this is going to do is it's not going to break any of your current dashboards. In other words, if I've got 25 widgets running on my dashboard right now, it's not just going to magically take away 10 of them if you're still running the default. It will grandfather all of your dashboards in. But what it will prevent you from doing is adding more widgets to that dashboard that has 25. So if I pop over to my dashboards over here, you're going to notice up at the top right, if I go ahead and try to add a new widget, it is grayed out. When I hover over it, it's going to say, hey, dashboards cannot have more than 3 widgets. Why? Because I took my number down, because I'll be honest, I didn't feel like adding 15 widgets onto this dashboard. So I just took my number down pretty low. So that's going to go ahead and prevent you from adding more. It does give you some nice information that you cannot add more. If you want to up that value, you can up it up to 25 to be able to have 25 widgets on a single dashboard. The other thing that this will do is, now if I try to copy this dashboard, it's not going to let me. Again, we're not trying to cause anybody grief, but we also don't want anybody circumventing the system. The idea here is efficiency. We find a lot of customers go in and they have, for lack of a better word, a test dashboard where they're creating widgets and then maybe they copy that widget over to a live dashboard. That's great. We encourage it. That's why we have that copy functionality. But the problem is those test dashboards, people just keep adding to them and adding to them and adding to them and adding to them. And every time they load that, it starts pulling all this information, be it monthly information, weekly information, daily information, and people just aren't cleaning them up the way that we originally expected. So what we've done is we just put that little limit on there. It's going to basically allow you, if I delete one of these widgets over here or delete 2 of these widgets over here, I'll be able to go ahead and just add another one. Again, also a system application property. So anytime you need to be able to change those or adjust those for your environment, right under the gear, application settings, and you'll be able to make any adjustments to any of those settings that we just talked about. Last but not least, the last thing I wanted to mention is dashboard permalinking. Permalinking is something that we love, our customers love, but we did go ahead and have some issues with single sign-on. Anybody using SSO, the dashboarding was not working because it was still trying to authenticate through the single sign-on IDP. So we've made some adjustments. So even if you are using single sign-on, you can now go ahead and set dashboard permalinks, and those will work. They will not route through the IDP, so something to keep in mind. When you are sending permalinks, you are not logging into Verify. A permalink is basically a read-only copy of that dashboard. You can require a login, again, not SSO. It would be a standard password. But if you are using SSO, you were trying to use permalinks in the past, you would notice that it did not work because it was still trying to authenticate over to your IDP. We did go ahead and make some changes. So what we were going to do is basically send a bypass link to that permalink and allow your SSO users to be able to access those permalinks via saving it as a favorite or just going to that hyperlink. So with all that said, those are the highlights of version 13. If you were looking for any kind of change log, you wanted to see, hey, what's different between my version and version 13? Always pop over to verify.com. You can navigate right over to our support pages here, and we have a product change log. This is a great way to be able to just identify some of the things that may be of interest to you, but also some of the other things that may have changed that we don't consider, huge visual impacting things. Like, for example, in 13.0, we upgraded Apache to 8.5.7.7. So you'll be able to go through here and take a look at any of the change logs, what's changed between my version and a version that's out now, and get some great information. So again, I apologize for going fast. I know we had a lot to cover. Dre, let me go ahead and kick the ball back to you. Do we have any questions or anything to answer here?
No questions so far. Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent.
All right. Well, as we have no more questions, I just want to mention our user community of Planet Verify, our new online community where you can connect with your peers and expand your knowledge of all things Verify. Plus, you may end up with a new drink recipe from the cantina. And also at the bottom of the page here, I know it's crudely put in, but we just announced Verify Beyond. It's going to be October 27th. Be the first to register for our upcoming live stream event and secure your spot to learn about upcoming features and enhancements from Verify, Zoom Phone, WebEx calling, roadmap discussion, and more. We will also be sending out 100 t-shirts to the first 100 Verify Beyond attendees. So make sure to head over to verify.com/beyond to register. All right, the moment we all been waiting for, and the winner of this week's workshop gift card is Lee Watkins. Congratulations, Lee. Your account manager will be reaching out to you shortly to get you that gift card. Don't forget to join us next week where Mike and Victor will showcase the different ways to use Verify groupings. It's going to be September 28th, same time. So I want to thank everybody for taking the time for joining us today, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks all.